Life in the 21st century moves so fast that it often leaves us no chance to reflect on the world and put the magnitude of the universe into perspective. But our trip to Lake Powell, with its newly revealed secrets of the past, both those of my lifetime and those of the ancients, drives home the point that life is a circle, and that trip around the block is as full of wonder now as it was when I was a kid. I first came to Lake Powell in the fall of 1967. The lake was at the same level then that it is today. My memories of the lake seemed bigger than life back then. The canyon walls seemed taller. The soft, silky sand seemed like a magical carpet in the desert. The lake more isolated, and an adventure of discovery. Over the years, most of the important things of my life have happened at Lake Powell. Discovery of new places, love. In fact, Corby and I even got married on the lake. And our daughter Kira took her first boat ride here when she was 9 months old. Through all the years, the most striking memories were still the first ones. Over the decades of boating, the canyons and pinnacles seemed less towering, and the sand more common, and the lake less private than it used to be. All of this time, I thought that it was just that I was a kid when I first went to Powell, and my memories were over-exaggerated. And, the thrill had worn off. But after this trip, with the lake at the same level as when I first came here, I realized it was not me who had changed as the years passed. It was the lake. We have seen so many things on this trip that I had forgotten or dismissed that if I were to point them out, it would take, a week or two, and the show is only half an hour, so I'll just have to point out a few in hopes that you'll come see how truly unique this lake is. For when it fills again, it will be different. I know, I've already seen it once. One of the most noticeable things about the lake over the full lake of 5 years ago was West Canyon, and this is the same canyon that Guy Robertson and I hiked when we wrote a book about Lake Powell in the summer of 2000. The water in the canyon ends at least a mile before it did back then, but the hike and the running water through the canyon still make for an excellent diversion. Its simple stream serving as the home to a host of lizards, Kira making friends with all of them. When I was young, I remembered what seemed like a water cave at every turn along the steep walls of the main channel. Well, that too was not just a memory. From the channels to the canyons of the Escalante, we found many water caves and amphitheaters. Many of them big enough to park a houseboat or two in. It is remarkable to me just how durable the desert is. The cataclysmic naysayers that have trashed the value of Lake Powell have warned for over 40 years that the treasures once buried would be lost or ruined forever. But quite the contrary is true. In a way, the lake has preserved them, protecting them from sun and vandals and wind and overuse, only to reveal them on special occasions so that each generation may treasure them at least once. As a kid, I remembered a most magnificent arch with a window behind it, tucked into a little cove at the mouth of Rock Creek Bay. Well, I relived the wonder again on this trip by seeing that arch. In fact, I lived it twice, as my children also marveled at its beauty. If you boated on Lake Powell in the 1980s and you paid a visit to Hole in the Rock, it was just a slit in sandstone. But from today's perspective, you can clearly see the path and the sandy landing below. But of all the things I treasured on this trip, it was the simple things, the ones that thrilled me as a kid when I was here. The way that the bays were more isolated. You see, that's because the ridges and reefs of a decade ago are now towering canyon walls that you wander around instead of speed over. Or another thing is the magical sand. We used to land on a beach and tromp on the sand, sometimes 3 or 4 feet away from the water's edge, and that firm, soft, silky sand would start to wiggle, and as you kept working at it, the sand would feel like a carpet floating on a bowl of Jell-O. And then all of a sudden your feet would break through and you'd sink up to your knees. And if for no other reason, to come here now, just playing with your kids in this sand is worth the time and the effort to make the trip. From a lone tree stump void of sunlight for half a century, to the magnificent cathedral in the desert, this rare glimpse of the lake is that once-in-a-lifetime peek at something special that nature will only afford us on rare occasions here at Lake Powell. Don't wish for it all the time, and don't regret it when it's buried. Just enjoy it while it's here.